Welcome back to the Vandy Sports Podcast. I'm Joey Dwyer, and Vanderbilt gets a commitment out of nowhere from Brentwood Academy guard Tyler Tanner. Also plays for Bradley Beal Elite, draws a lot of parallels to former Vanderbilt guard Darius Garland, who also played at Brentwood Academy. Also played for Bradley Beal Elite. I don't know that Tyler Tanner is that sort of prospect, but certainly one that's worth mentioning as Vanderbilt fills out its 2024 class. It's his second commitment. And where I want to start is just kind of where Tyler Tanner fits into this roster in the upcoming seasons. Ezra Manjon is gone after this year, obviously, doesn't have any more eligibility. Tyler Tanner seems like a guy who could slot in and fill a lot of the things that Ezra Manjon does well. Doesn't quite have the speed he does, probably not the athlete that Ezra is, but is a very nuanced passer, knows how to run an offense, and is really advanced just in terms of basketball IQ for his age. I think it's a guy who is going to do a lot well for Vanderbilt, can score at all three levels, probably going to work mostly from the perimeter, but can get inside a little bit, is capable at all three levels, and really think he's a nice compliment to Karis Bilal. Tanner's really poised, seems to make the right play a lot of the time. Maybe won't put up crazy numbers, but does a lot of things really well, especially on the offensive end. Versus Karis Bilal, who also does a lot of things really well, might be a better prospect than Tanner, but it's a little more erratic, has the athleticism, the flashiness. Tanner's probably not going to have all that, but he's going to be a really consistent, poised guard who's going to do a lot of things well. Isn't going to turn it over a whole lot. Is a really advanced playmaker. Will make shots at a decent clip. Only shot at 40% at Peach Jam, 33% from three, but averaged 9 points a game against some of the best competition in the country. And I think that really sold Vanderbilt as it looked to fill its 2024 class. Now has a really interesting backcourt, really interesting dynamic in that backcourt with kind of the poised, steady guy who's not going to make a whole lot of flashy plays versus Karis Bilal, who does have the capability to be that poised guy, but also is probably better when he's kind of letting loose and trying to make plays all over the court and make crazy finishes at the rim and do all that off the bounce. I think Bilal's probably going to be your scorer now that he can move to the two. Tyler Tanner's probably going to be the one, and they're going to have roles to fill in that backcourt as Ezra leaves. Tyron Lawrence coming back is certainly questionable as well. If he has a good year, he could be going to the NBA, and Vanderbilt's going to have a lot to fill in that backcourt. Maybe still needs a transfer guard, but certainly has some capable guys. And I think looking at those capable guys like Isaiah West, who actually told me he was recruiting Tanner this winter, I think it was February, I went to see him and talk to him, told me Tanner was the number one guy on his board, and Vanderbilt got him. So that's cool to see. But for West and Paul Lewis in particular, I think draws parallels to Tyler Tanner. Those are three young guards who are poised, do a lot of things well, and are a bit undersized, have a little deficiency in that area, but it seems like Jerry Stackhouse has a type in terms of his point guards at this stage of his tenure at Vanderbilt, and Tyler Tanner certainly fits that and will be a guy who feels like Stackhouse thinks can make an impact. And also recruiting locally, the way Vanderbilt has, I think, is really beneficial. Obviously, didn't get Brandon Miller, but got Isaiah West in this class, Malik Dia in the last class, and then 2024 gets Tyler Tanner. So Vanderbilt's doing a nice job in terms of recruiting the Nashville area, and I think Vanderbilt has to do that in order to capitalize on this run it's going on, just finding ways to recruit that in-state talent and keep that in-state talent, not even in-state talent, in-city talent, in the city. Isaiah West and I start with that, probably the best prospect out of the three, and then Tanner, who also has really nice upside as a playmaker and a guy who can give you a lot in terms of being that floor general type guy. And then Malik Dia, obviously, is at Belmont now, so that's something to note. But Tanner also had a Belmont offer, also had an Ole Miss offer. It's not a recruitment that was super highly publicized. It's not one with a ton of big suitors, but I think it's one that could be very beneficial for Vanderbilt as it moves forward, kind of like Paul Lewis was, although Lewis was added later in the class. I think that's kind of the comparison I like for Tyler Tanner, is a guy who his film probably won't, at least his highlight tape, won't completely blow you away, but if you watch a full game of him and you see kind of how he's operating the offense, you can see kind of how he's able to operate ball screens and get downhill with composure. I think it's a guy you'll really like. And like I said, the dynamic between him and Karis Bilal in that backcourt is going to be really interesting to see, because those guys are kind of different players, although I think Bilal is capable of being what Tanner is, but he's probably better when he's kind of let loose like that. like he was this summer when averaged, I think, the second most points on Nike's second circuit. Tanner was playing against a whole other level of competition, though. He played in Peach Jam, played on the EYBL circuit the whole summer, and really proved himself as a guy who can hang with the big dogs, and despite being a little undersized, can hold up against some of the best guards in the country. I'll have to go game by game and watch a little more film. I'll probably do a film breakdown at some point throughout the summer on him and Bilal, but I think Vanderbilt has a nice classes put together, and Tyler Tanner is really at the center of that. So Tyler Tanner, I think, is a guy who Vanderbilt probably needed to add. Probably couldn't miss this one from in the city, and gets him. So says good things about the program and what it's doing in the city, and also could have a nice on-court impact with him and Karis Bilal sharing the court. My question is, how much is Tyler Tanner able to translate as a scorer, just because of maybe not being the athlete Karis Bilal is, but he's really smooth. I think that's the number one word that I would describe his offensive game as: smooth, and takes the right shot, makes the right play, and will be a guy who probably will continue to do that as he gets older. Feels like he's pretty advanced for his age in terms of the decisions he makes on the floor, and the way he goes about things on the floor. So nice get. And Vanderbilt seems to have a type, like I said, with those kind of guards. Paul Lewis, I would use the same words to expect, as well as Isaiah West, although West is a little bit more gritty than those guys. Those guys are still two guys who kind of draw comparisons in those aspects. So feels like Vanderbilt has a nice nucleus of young guards. I talked a lot about in the winter that they had a nice nucleus of front court players. Now they have that in the backcourt with Paul Lewis, Isaiah West. I guess Malik Presley could maybe slide down to the two, Karis Bilal, and then add in Tyler Tanner. It's a really nice nucleus that Vanderbilt has there, and they're going to need it because in about a year, either going to be searching for transfer portal guards, or you're going to be relying on the 2024 class as well as 2023 and one of your 2022 guys. So I think this was a addition that Vanderbilt kind of had to have. You can't go with a one-man 2024 class, especially after the 2 5-man classes the stack has put together. I'd expect this one to maybe be a little smaller, but who knows? I probably expected 2023 to be a bit smaller than it was. A lot of roster turnover nowadays in college basketball, and it feels like Tyler Tanner is the guy who could stick around, maybe come in and play immediately, and give Vanderbilt some good things. There's a lot to be seen. Before then, I'll try to go see Tyler Tanner a few times at Brentwood Academy this year. I meant to go see him last year, but didn't get around to it. But certainly a guy who I think Vanderbilt fans should be excited about. And this recruiting class in general is one you should be excited about. Vanderbilt was at Peach Jam, was at some Adidas events, and I think some Under Armour events as well over the last few weeks. So it feels like 2024 recruiting is really ramping up, and already have 2 players in the class. So nice get for Vanderbilt. Now it's time for this team to prove it on the floor this season. So when Tanner comes, it's a season with more expectation, and a season where if he can come in and give them minutes, it'll be a little more appreciated. But that's all for now. I think it's a nice get. Not rated currently by Rivals. I'd expect that to change at some point, especially now that he's committed. But really all I got for now, just a nice guard. Fits Vanderbilt's type, and also becomes a guy who kind of proves that Vanderbilt can keep guys in the city. So thank you guys for watching. God bless, and peace.